and the rest of the world, Supersonics Money Transfer has got you covered. With the largest payout network in the Gambia, you can now receive your monies anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics. Of the world, Supersonics Money Transfer has got you covered. With the largest payout network in the Gambia, you can now receive your monies anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Membe kerim babu wolom akakenu nyameng niko akakenu nyameng nunto adol be nyaadile parce que niamoy ko ado nen ciosano ka hadama dingol signify ite mu jumale ite bota jumale bala wol fanal bota jumale fanal bala
ñu ne lan dekkil sa ada ak sa cosaan akakenu nyami num na amé dem
babu ko ne dinni ngo jibe e ko akalon ko yemmen fo
xama sa ada sa cosaan motax Gambian Talents TV ak Ibu ak babu ñu tok ñu ne il faut ñu dunda sun ada ak sun cosaan
nunto alfal kela din bayali ke kulu no nyaadile ke kulu nyaadile fo bultero lo bang fodum e ka dumuro le dila bang fo ka mum fel le dila ñun programme le biwo be fene andi la
kon kenn ku nekk bo buké xam sa ada sa cosaan fu nga bayé ko sama fu nga bayé ko
nunto alfalu ila sunkurundi wole ke pare nyaadile ila dum fengol fanal be nyaadile ko mun dum fen sifal le fanal dum ñun programme le fanal be witandila
nena lan ku wati sa ande anu bodam nga fekk fofam
tel dinde mankaje ke balka julo city yiro balay ka fo finja julo ga ko be siring e be ko jijala ko mol bitay do tari ko fola dinde ngoli
lu do am demba lu tax amatu tay la motax top suñu nasadan faté suñu ada association
ak kenu ñameng
ada association ak kenu ñaar topalañu ahamas bu jot juroom waxtu be juroom ñaar waxtu fan la mo amé ci Gambian Talents TV ibula ak babu
Good evening, Gambia. This is Sheriff Conte. Here in our office, Gambian Talents TV in Westfield currently. This is an exclusive interview with a Gambian political commentator called Coach Samba Jow. We all know him, of course. Before we go further, we will just thank each and every one of you who are following this program currently live here in Westfield. Mr. Samba Jow is currently in Washington, connecting directly. Mr. Jow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Can I say good evening or good morning?
Well, good afternoon would suffice. We are in the afternoon here, but from your
Thank
end,
you.
I can understand good evening. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, you can greet the audience, people that are currently following the program.
Well, greetings to all the viewers of Gambia Talent TV, and I am honored to be here to join you on your program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jow. I think the name has been very, very popular here in the Gambia. But first of all, can I ask you, Mr. Jow, who is Mr. Samba Jow?
I am a Gambian. I was born in the Gambia, raised in the Gambia until I moved to the United States of America, where I've lived for over 2 decades now. I am very passionate about the Gambia, Gambian politics,
Yes,
Gambian
originally from,
football.
yes,
Originally from New
originally
Joswang.
from where in the Gambia and the schoolings and, yes.
New Joswang, went to St. Teresa's Primary School, attended St. Augustine's, among many schools that I've attended in the Gambia, and came to the United States in about 27 years ago.
Right. Which college have you attended or school in
North
US?
Hennepin Community College first, and then what was it? Maryland, University of Maryland University College, which is now University of Maryland Global Campus.
All right. So did Mr. Jow ever supported a political party, or have you ever been a member of any political party in
Yes,
the Gambia here?
yes. I am currently and have been a member of the People's Democratic Organization for Independence and Socialism, DOI.
All right. All right. We understand that also you have been commenting on many national issues. What is your understanding of activism? Yes, you are laughing.
That's an interesting question. It is a loaded question. Activism. I believe that almost everybody is an activist in one way or another. For the most part, activism is just reduced to political activism. But activism is pretty much believing in an ideal or an idea and being an advocate for it. That's what I believe to be an activist. It is a thankless job, and it is one that is done not to expect anything in return, but one that is done with the sole objective of advancing a cause for the greater good of everybody or society.
All right. Can I call you an activist?
Yes, I am an activist, a hardcore activist, yes.
All right, a hardcore activist. Briefly, what has been your role in terms of voting Jame out here? You understand that you have been very outspoken regarding issues happening in the country here during Jame's era and even after Jame's era. So, what are some of the steps you took to make sure Jame is out of this country?
Well, various. When the coup happened on July 22nd, 1994, I was in the Gambia. I worked as a newspaper reporter for New Citizen newspaper, which was run by the late Babukar Gay. And I also worked at the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies. I was opposed to the coup, and I was one of few Gambians who were critical of Jammeh when he came, because you must remember that when Jammeh came, there was a lot of fanfare. A lot of people welcomed the change because in their minds, Jawara had overstayed and that there was corruption. So the coup was justified. I had my misgivings about the coup, and that was evident from day one. So during that period, the only avenues that one had to say anything were on the newspaper, like letter to the editor and stuff. So I wrote a lot about issues like that. And there was a program, a short-lived program on Radio 1 FM called Wahante Degate Yalata. It was anchored by the late George Christensen and was being helped in that by the late Efri Bayi. I used to call and used to be very critical of the government. Upon leaving,
So at the time in the country, you are together here with Jame, and you were
yes.
very critical.
Oh yes.
Is
So
it that
when I
at that time? Is it that at that time Jame was not that much harsh? Or
it's not a matter of being harsh, because I believe that your right is your right and must be exercised, irrespective of what might come to you. Now, he was not as crazy as he ended up being, but you also have to understand what was going on, because at that period, I remember there was a Sana Sabali had called George or went to George Christensen. And the suggestion was, you know what, if anybody were to say anything on the radio, they had to, at least give their ID. And that was somewhat of threatening people, to say, okay, you know what, if you want to be critical, we have to come with your ID. And all. I remember when I heard that, I decided to leave my house, walked all the way to that station, just to have a say as to what was going on. We also have to remember that this was a time when Halifa Saleh and Sidi Ajata were arrested for defying Decree Number 4. So even though Jammeh was not crazy, but the formation, the formulation of his crazy policies were coming in play, because decrees were being written that were going after people who had views that were contrary to his. So yes, he was not, killing then, but it didn't take long for them to execute the November 10th, November 11 supposed coupists.
yes, you can continue from where you stopped at the newspaper.
Yeah, so after that, after I left and came to the United States, I continued with my advocacy. Now, people must understand, during this time, it was not as it ended up being, because there were people still who believed that the coup was necessary, and those who believed that they needed to give him a chance, and very few of us who believed that this regime needed to be confronted head on. So it was a very lonely one, because people were indifferent, because to them nothing was crazy, because it was very easy to always blame Sana Sabali for everything. Like the November 10th, when you talk about November 10th, 11, when you talk about it, say, oh, that was Sana and his people, Jammeh didn't have anything to do with it. When Koro Sise was killed, oh, Jammeh was out of the country. When the students were killed, oh, Jammeh was not even in the country. But when the students were killed, that was when everybody started opening their eyes to the reality that, hey, this could be serious. So I continued with my advocacy, working with people, the Osmangas of the world, the Sophisticians, and a whole lot of people. And then, of course, the rest is history until we get to where we are today. But all along, I've been fully engaged in the process, and protesting, getting arrested, and doing all that to awaken the world to the happenings of our country.
So you were arrested once?
Yeah, I was arrested for what we call Operation Borbor. It was Duga, the Democratic Union of Gambian Activists. We decided that we were going to take over the Gambian embassy in DC with the sole objective of bringing to the attention of the world the plight of Gambians. We were arrested. Of course, is the greatest thing to have happened to me in my life. It's a badge of honor. And we felt it was a very important tactic. And these are some of the tactics that activists do. They are different. People do different things, but this was, we believe, a tactical move that was necessary to bring to light the plight of Gambians, especially the constant violation of fundamental human and constitutional rights in our country.
Right. So, were you critical on Sarada's government, like you did to Jammeh?
Yes, I was. I told you that I am a member of DOI, and I was a staunch opponent of Sadauda. Even though you cannot equate Sadauda with Jammeh, they are totally different. But I was also very, very opposed to the Jawara regime. I supported DOI, and I believe that DOI is the best solution to our country. and didn't support Jawara.
So you think Doi is the best solution? Why do you think so?
Because I believe Doi has the policies and the programs, the integrity that is needed, the honesty that is needed to steer the ship of that country to where it needs to go. Because at the end of the day, if you look at our country today, we live in abject poverty. And how do our leaders live? They live like gods on top of the people, while our people continue to live in abject poverty. The economic policies that the PPP had are not very different from the economic policies that Barrow is espousing. They are not very much different from the economic policies that Jammeh was trying to instill. I believe that the economic policies of Doi, together with its integrity.
Yes, we will come to Doi shortly. So, what is the difference? Basically, what is the difference? The economic system that Jammeh was operating and that of Barrow, because in Jammeh's era, sometimes you will have people will sit there and send a text message, and then they will put money in the bag and bring it for them. Jammeh can sit and say, "Sir, bring this amount of money to me right now." So, do you think Barrow is also doing the same?
No, I think you are mistaking something. You are mistaking those things. Economic policies
yes,
and corrupt practices are not necessarily the same thing. The corruption is still in the Gambia. It was worse under Jammeh. That is a fact. That is a irrefutable fact. What I'm talking about is the economic policies, the capitalistic economic policies that they are practicing. A policy that is based entirely on loans and grants. A policy that is based entirely on taking care of those at the top and leaving our people to live in abject poverty. Those are the policies I'm talking about. Now, when it comes to corruption, that is an act different from the economy of the country. So this is where I'm coming from.
Basically, you are talking of things that are guiding the economic system of
yes,
the country,
the economic system of the country.
Government and Jammeh.
Yes.
So basically, what is the difference there? You are talking about.
There is not that much of a difference if you look at all three of them. You look at the PPP, for example. The PPP came into power in 1965. By 1983, we have the economic recovery. 83, 85, we have the economic recovery program, the ARP. And the reason for the ERP was because to them, the World Bank and the IMF, Gambia was in such a debt, so deep indebted in its indebtedness that it needed to come up with formulate policies that would make it be able to pay back those loans. And when the economic recovery program came, some of the most valuable institutions in our governance system had to be sold. The GPMB, for example, the GPMB used to make almost $100 million a year at that time, because the GPMB used to turn groundnut into soap, into what do they call it, cooking oil, and a lot of these things. So it used to make money. But when the IMF and World Bank came, they said, listen here, your economy is not viable. It cannot continue to keep these institutions in place because of the amount of money that you owe. Now, as a result, you have to sell these institutions so that you'll be able to at least have an economy that is totally capitalistic. And this was why the GPMB was privatized, NTC was gone, Gambia Commercial and Development Bank was gone, and all these other institutions that were owned by the governments and maybe not properly run, but of course, we are bringing revenue to the country, creating employment, had to be sold. And when that happened, a massive retrenchment happened. A lot of Gambians, thousands of Gambians lost their jobs, and they had no other way or means of being able to recoup those jobs. So that was a problem. And the sad thing is, when Jammeh came, he promised that he was going to have a different form of economic policy. But we know what he did. It was the same thing. It was a textbook thing, copy and paste. But because of his stupidity, he decided to go and say that he was going to recoup, retake, recapture, or capture GPMB. He took it from them. And what was bought for about $100 million is those people sued us abroad and ended up being paid hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars or pounds. So meaning that it was a loss situation along the way, all the way. we see what is happening with Barrow. The level of indebtedness. I was just reading somewhere today, if I remember very well. I think our national debt alone is at over $38 billion.
Domestic debt?
The domestic debt. And I'm not talking about even the external debt. When you talk about that, it's something else. You look at our economy and how it is surviving now. It survives mainly on remittances that are coming into the country, meaning that there is nothing being done to inject the resources that are coming in the country into the productive sectors of the economy where they could yield us something. And this is what Doi is being talking about. How do we harness our natural resources? How do we take the money that is coming in, putting it somewhere where it would benefit the people? And this is the difference. And this is why I believe that my party has a better policy to be able to deal with that situation in the country.
Yes, that's very clear. So, did you know that one of your colleagues in the field of, I can say, in the field of political activism or economic activism, something like that, Nyanjai decides to take a break?
Yeah, I read that today on the Standard, and I do not fault him. You see, activism, like I said, is a thankless job.
Wait, let me play this video from him so that you can hear from him. My technical person. Where's Musa? Okay, you can continue before Musa comes.
Yeah, that activism is a thankless job. Not everybody can do it. Right? For me, I say hardcore because it is.
All right, Musa, can you play that for me? Mm-hmm. Can you play that for me? The first one.
Good evening. You're not doing it for people. You are doing it for your conviction and conscience. Your conviction and conscience, that's what propels you to do the type of things you do. Why does your conviction and conscience propel you to do these things? Because you believe society deserves better, and sometimes you believe the populace don't know better. Having said that, I've been engaged in activism for the longest time since I've known myself. And I've decided that right is right and wrong is wrong, and injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that propelled Nyanjai to be active, that propelled Nyanjai to lend his voice, that propelled Nyanjai to make sure people whose voices are not heard are heard. The marginalized in our society are protected. The gangsters, economic gangsters that want to take our country to the cleaners are shamed, named, and exposed. This has been why Nyanjai was out there. It has never been a personal enterprise, meaning I never did it because I had scores to settle with people. Matter of fact, some of the people I've been hitting hard on are family members. I have blood ties with them. So it's never a personal endeavor, because the interest of the greater good, that is the interest of Gambia, supersedes my personal relationships and personal interests. So therefore, when I got up and spoke about a lot of issues, it wasn't to make enemies with people. It wasn't to harass people. It was done because that was the right and the appropriate thing to do for the Gambia. Now, having said this, or having said that, I mean, this thing has become something that has been part of me. And one thing I hate the most is when people see me out in the streets and say, Nyan, you're doing a good job. That's not why I was doing what I've been doing. I wasn't looking for commendation. I wasn't looking for people to endorse what I'm doing. I was doing it because my conscience and my conviction said that's the right thing to do. Well, since it was the right thing to do, I wanted to continue to do it.
All right. That one is very short, but shortly we will listen to the other one also. You watch that one also, then we get back on track. All right. All right. So is that one in? Hello, Mr. Jow?
Yes, I'm here.
Term
I thought-
immediate
yeah.
gain,
Alright.
meaning a bag of rice today. $500 is today. And they compromise themselves for something way better than a bag of rice or that $500 is. So it has been a pull and push for quite a while. We make gains sometimes, but sometimes also the very society we're helping drag us to the mud. And Nyanjai, over the past 10 days, decided to have a solemn reflection. And this reflection is, do I want to continue under the prevailing social conditions that my country finds itself in? And after an introspective look at the situation and look at the predicament, I decided I'm going to take a back seat. It's painful. It's hurting because I want a better Gambia, and collectively we deserve a better Gambia. But mind you, I'm using the word we, not I. So since it's we, I think we have a collective response.
All right, Mr. Jow?
Wow, Mr. Conte.
Hope you were following.
Yeah, I was following. Well, Nyang is a friend. I have
All right.
known Nyang for a very, very, very long time when we were young, very, very young. So I do not fault him. Like I was saying, activism is a thankless job. It can be challenging. It can be difficult. And sometimes it's good to take a break.
Would you also take a break? But
no.
don't you think Gambians still need you, the activists?
Oh, no. That's why
Especially you are saying we are in this condition. Currently, there are a lot of descriptions on the situations regarding this country. So would you also take a break?
No, I will never take a break. I am an activist today, and I'll be an activist until the day I die. And I will always speak my mind, irrespective of who is in power. And I have always been known to be somebody who speaks for what he believes, irrespective of the peril. But I will not fault anybody who believes that they are tired and need to take a break. You see, I am guided by something that Dr. King said. And that was, an individual have not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. So what concerns me is not me. What concerns me is humanity. And as long as Gambia continues to be a country where my countrymen continue to live in abject poverty, where violations of fundamental human and constitutional rights continue to happen, not only in the Gambia, but around the world over, I, Samba Jow, will continue to be an activist and an advocate for a more just Gambia and a more just world.
Now, you're saying you are not going to take a break, but you said sometimes it's good to take a break. Is that not somehow conflicting?
No, it's up to, it's a matter of personal choice. Because activism is not a monolithic thing where everybody thinks together. There are people who have their limits. Everybody have their limits. Maybe that is Young's limit for now. But I can guarantee you one thing. Activism is dictated by conscience. And when his conscience is pricked, you'll hear Young speak again. It's easy to say, I give up. But if you believe in it, something would happen that would get you to come out and speak again. That I can guarantee you. It's sometimes you sit and say, you know what, Sonana, I'm tired. Batata, I need a break. But as long as the very conditions that led you into activism continue to persist, you would have no choice but to speak up. And in fact, what will make you speak up, you will not even know it. You will just wake up one day and write something, and they will, I thought you gave up, or say something. So that's why I said, at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. I'm not going to blame anybody for it, but I can only speak for me. And I know I am not giving up. What is there to give up for? I've done this thing all my life. Almost over 30 years of my life, I've been doing this. So I might as well just continue. I would rather die speaking truth to power than be alive and keeping quiet on issues that matter to most. Like King would say, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. The Gambia still needs its citizens, or her citizens, to speak up for her, because definitely we do not have a just country. Our country is ravaged by poverty.
There had been a lot of accusations towards the activists, especially Coach Madi Jobate, Nyangjai. Yes. How do you guys resist against this? Because if I listen to Nyang correctly, it seems like he is receiving critics that he cannot bear anymore. I think that's my personal opinion, if you watch the video correctly. So how do you guys resist against these critics? Because some are even saying the activists are hypocrites. That's what some say, especially in the Gambian activists.
That's all right. We are not the first one to be accused of that, and we won't be the last one to be accused of that. At the end of the day, when you speak, when you do, if your acts and your actions are based, are anchored on principles and conscience, then you are not worried about whatever anybody says. Because at the end of the day, you know why you're speaking. There are people who would accuse you that the reason why you're speaking is because, I remember when Barrow came to power, and we started questioning some of his actions. Then it was, you know what, because they didn't give you a position in the government, that's why you were saying. I've never wanted a position in the government. I don't even care about positions. That's not what drives me.
You guys pick and choose where to speak. Those are all accusations.
But you see, the thing is, I don't have a problem with that. Those who believe that you are picking and choosing where to speak, they also have these an open field. Nobody has monopoly over issues or topics. What is stopping you from speaking your mind? Why is Samba Jow or Madi Jobate so important that you have to listen to them to speak for you? If you believe that there is something that is happening that is not right, speak up. Everybody is a leader. Everybody should be an advocate. And when you're an advocate, you're not waiting for who speaks first for me to respond, or I'm waiting for somebody to speak for me. No. I don't need people speaking on my behalf. If I see something that I do not agree with, I will speak to it. That's just what guides me. But if you look at activism all along, all activists have been labeled. Even in the United States here. I remember Dr. King being labeled a rabble rouser. Malcolm X was being labeled somebody who is full of hate. The Stokely Michaels, Kwame Ture, they've been called names. All these activists that you're talking about in the world have been called. Mandela at one point, do you know, was labeled as a terrorist? There is a name that they didn't call him. But at the end of the day, if you're guided by principle and conscience, it doesn't matter what people say about you. I've been hearing that all my life. I've been, it doesn't matter to me. And this is my position too. The right that I have to make an opinion is the right that somebody also has the right to make opinion. If I go in public and say, you know what, Barrow is A, B, and C, well, there's the same way that Mr. Conte can come and say, Samba is A, B, and C. Whether it's fair or not, it's up to people to debate. If I feel like responding to you, I'll respond. If I don't, I'll just go about my business. That's just what it is. So I'm not bothered by criticisms, accusations, hypocrisy. It has become the choice word for Gambians. Everybody is a hypocrite, isn't it?
So now, what is your biggest achievement since you start this activism?
I don't think I have an achievement. To me, you see, when you're doing activism, it's not a matter of wins and losses. One thing that is the biggest achievement collectively of all Gambians, not me, all Gambians, is the ability to dislodge one of the most vicious tyrants that Africa has ever seen, and to usher in a democracy where today Sirif Conte can sit and have an interview with Samba Jow about Gambia and governance without fearing that as soon as he leaves the studio, he would be arrested and disappeared, or that studio would not happen. Let me tell you something. You see the Gambia Talent TV that you see now?
Yeah.
I remember one time going to a program with my Ndoke, Pausman Juf. I was here since it started, when it was only music and all that thing. He knows what I'm talking about. And he said something to me. I didn't hold it against him. I could not be interviewed, and I was not talking about politics. I was not talking about Jammeh. I was not talking about, what I was going to talk about was African Liberation Day, ALD, that was going to be hosted in DC by an organization that I was part of. And they saw me as the most ideal person to go and talk about the program, its history, and where we are, what we are trying to do. But then I understood that we lived in a dictatorship. But today, Gambia Talent is stationed in the Gambia. It covers every issue. It interviews everybody, irrespective of whether you support Barrow or you don't support Barrow. Opinions are flying forth. That's what we wanted. So to me, that is the biggest achievement that we as a people collectively made in that Gambia, in that country. So to me, that's one achievement, but it's not an individual achievement, but a collective achievement of Gambians in the diaspora, Gambians who voted, and the Gambia that we are living in today. Are we satisfied? No, but at least it is a million times better than where we lived, especially when it comes to respecting fundamental human and constitutional rights.
All right. Mr. Jow, if I may ask you, your own take on the diplomatic appointments President Adama Barrow did recently. What is your take on that? Do you think it's necessary to appoint those people because they've worked for President Adama Barrow? They've worked so hard. We've all been seen in the presidential election to make sure Barrow get back to that state house again. They all did that. So do you think Barrow should appoint those people again? Or it's not necessary after they have done a lot?
Here is the thing, Mr. Conte, whether we like it or not. Elections do have consequences. And according to the constitution of Gambia, of the country, Adama Barrow has the sole prerogative to appoint whomsoever he wants to any positions that he feels. Whether those people are qualified or not, that's another issue. I remember having an interview with Samba of Gambia Talent TV at the steps of the courthouse. That was during the UDP election petition.
Yes, I was there.
Yes, she asked me what my advice to the president was as regards to his cabinet. And my opinion was then that he must appoint people who were competent to run the affairs of the country, because the country does not have time to waste. Because if you look at our country, Mr. Conte, what has Gambia to show after 56, 57 years of independence? Nothing. Our people still live in abject poverty. Our education system is a mess. Our healthcare system is a mess. Our security system is a mess. There is nothing that you can point to the Gambia and say, you know what, I am proud as a Gambian that we are doing this better than anybody else in the world. Our whole operation is based on beggardom. What the IMF gives us, what the World Bank gives us, what the US gives us, what England gives us, what EU gives us, this is what we have been focused on for 56 years, now 57.
But do you think we have that resources?
Let me ask you this question, Mr. Conte.
You'll ask me?
Yes, I know you are a young man.
Yeah.
But since you've become aware, when was the last time that you heard of a minister not being able to go to work because of their car broke down? Or that they were not able to travel abroad to attend a meeting because we could not buy air tickets for them? Or that they could not eat?
Yes, I wouldn't answer questions, but this time around I'll answer. I've never had that.
Okay, so why is it that so convenient that we have resources to take care of those that are running the country, but on whose behalf they are running the country are still living in abject poverty? Your ambulances today, when you ask for ambulance, what do they tell you? The machine broke down. We do not have petrol. So all these problems are there. When it comes to the masses, we see the problems. When it comes to those that are governing the country, they have no problem. We do not lack the resources. Because let's look at the Gambia, for example. What is happening with the mining that is happening in that country? What are they mining? On whose behalf are they mining? It was all shrouded in private, in secrecy on the Jamme. Do you know what they are mining in Katong and Batakunko and all those other places? Has any Gambian ever been provided any information as to the amount of resources generated from it? We say we don't have the resources, but we have no problem signing an agreement with the EU to be able to ship, to fish, from our oceans for tuna, one of the most expensive things. It is very much eaten around Europe and the United States here. But the EU gave us what, about 500,000 euros so that they can fish in our waters for tuna for a whole year. You think that makes sense? So we are talking about lack of resources, but everybody is coming for our resources. The Chinese are now fishing every day. So what are they extracting from our oceans to benefit themselves that cannot be beneficial to us? So it's not a matter of lacking resources, it's a matter of continued mismanagement of our resources and maladministration. That is Gambia's biggest problem. And this is why, to come back to your question, who is appointed to a position matters very much. Barrow can choose to fill all these positions with political operatives, or he can choose to look at those who will genuinely help develop our country to put them in those positions. But again, when people went to the polls in December, all these things were on the ballot, and they decided to vote for somebody who would rather appoint a political operative as a minister or an ambassador or a first secretary.
But Barrow could say that those are the ones who stood with him to make sure he's back at that state house.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a choice that he can make. If that's what he feels, more power to him. But is it beneficial to the Gambian people? That's what Gambians must ask themselves. It's not a matter of who is appointed, but what are we getting from it? So that's the fundamental question that every Gambian must ask him or herself, especially and particularly the voters.
All right. now we come back to the bills. There are more than 10. It's far more than that. I didn't check the book the last time. I was trying to check it here, but I know that it's more than 10. Something around 15, or it's even more than that. But then what is your, do you think, let me say this. Which bill do you think is very, very important that we should first act on it among all those bills, the anti-corruption bills, and there are a lot of bills there.
You said it, the anti-corruption bill that needs to pass. But we do not want a watered down anti-corruption bill. And let me tell you this, Mr. Conte. The fact that the National Assembly continues to play hooky with that bill, try to be smart and use all these languages of trying to say, you know what, we have to look at it. It's not important to them because I don't think they are ready to fight corruption. You see, unless we have people of integrity, people who are incorruptible, corruption is going to continue. Because what is stopping them from passing a bill that is ironclad and say, you know what, we don't want corruption? I don't think there is any religion that espouses for corruption. There is no culture that supports corruption. There is no decent person who should support corruption. So why is it so difficult to legislate against corruption? That's the problem. The other issue that we have is we need to have a constitutional amendment, or at least a new constitution. One that would make sure that we have term limits, very strong entrenched term limits, for all elective positions. It's not only the president. I believe every position that is elected in that country needs to be term limited, because that's the only way that people will come and do their work and go. There is no need for somebody to continue to be president for 30 years, 22 years, and left to borrow, he will be there for another 20 years. That's too much. For what? This is why I had always advocated for a one-term presidency. One term.
One term?
One
do you
term,
think that's very short?
No, it's not. It's not. There are some countries, if I remember, I think it's Costa Rica also. I start to be correct. They have one-term listing presidency. Even in Virginia, where in the United States, the governorship, one term. You may run for elections again, but after one term, you have to step down and they would elect somebody else. We have to have a country
but
of
that
former
one
presidents.
too, Mr. Jow, that one too, don't you think it's going to be a waste of resources every 5 years, spending
But
a
we
lot
have
of money?
elections every 5 years, though. Don't we have elections every 5 years? It does not
Yes,
have to
we
be the
have.
same person. And you know what? There is no, the amount of resources that are wasted for presidents seeking for re-election. You think Barrow did not use state resources to get re-elected again? You didn't think Yaya Jammeh was using state resources to get elected again? But if you have, look at what happened to the Gambia, our draft constitution. You know why it failed? Because Barrow's aspirations were threatened. Because Barrow wanted to serve a second term. Barrow wanted to be president for at least 15 years. So imagine if we had a constitution that said, you know what, it's a 5-year presidency. We would have had a constitution by now, a new constitution by now, and Gambia would have been dealing with some other issues. But even if they want to go with the 2-term presidency, let it make sure that Barrow, for example, should not and must not run for a 3rd term. Because that would have defeated the whole purpose of why people fought. And people died. People were jailed. And the resources that were lost and all that stuff. So to me, the anti-corruption bill is important. But most importantly, we need a constitution that is progressive and one that would curtail the rights of the executive, especially any president wanting to be president for more than 10 years. For what? Why do you want to be president for 10 years? What are you doing? What is so important that you feel that you have to be the only person to lead the country? Give us a break.
Yes. Quickly, we come to this one. There are groups of people whose names is coalitions of progressive Gambians who wanted to hold a demonstration on the 11th November. And also you have another group also who made a press release, Gambia for 5 years and peace building, that they're going to counter the other group if they didn't try to get a permit to hold a demonstration and other things. And these people have been denied of a permit to hold demonstration. Although they've come up with their, they came up with their, the reasons of their demonstration. It is part of it that the corruption is part of it and other things. So do you think after being denied of a permit, they should still go out to hold a demonstration? Or is it lawful for them to do?
Well, you know what is unlawful? What is unlawful is for the executive to continue to abrogate people's rights to freedom of assembly just out of fear that maybe if they protest, there will be consequences against the government. I don't think Barrow and his government are doing this for anything but to protect Barrow and himself. The right to protest is a fundamental human and constitutional right. It is a right that is guaranteed by the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It is a right that is guaranteed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it is a right that is guaranteed by the Gambian Constitution. So fundamentally, this denial of permit based on frivolous reasons should be something that everybody should frown at. Because at the end of the day, it is a right that must be respected and protected. So this is my thing. So I believe that they are within their rights to protest. And you know what? Why must one need a permit to organize a peaceful protest? Why? We have the police there for a reason, and their presence should be to make sure that at least nobody's rights are violated, and those who protest will do it peacefully. That's it. If they break the law, then they can be arrested. But this denial, to me, is nonsensical and is nothing. It's not democratic at all. And it's not done in the interest of the nation. It is done in the interest of Barrow because of his fear that maybe if these people protest, it will get out of hand. That's just what it is. I don't think Barrow cares about what Gambians think also or anything. It's silly. And those who want to counter-protest, that is their right too if they want to counter-protest. Let the police just make sure that both protests can go ahead without anybody else having to fight anybody else. That's just what it is, definitely.
So now you think after being denied of permit, they should still go out? Or?
If I were them, I would first challenge the denial to court, the constitutionality of the denial itself. But we must remove this denial to where now it would be, you would just inform the police and say, you know what, okay, on this date, we are holding a protest. And people do that so that the police will be properly equipped to come and deal with it. Let me give you an example. In the United States here, I've been part of hundreds of demonstrations here. Some about the Gambia, others about Palestine, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all these other countries. Permit is not always necessarily needed. And you are never denied a permit to hold a protest because you fill a form sometimes and say, you know what, on this day, we are holding a protest about this. Then in the form, there you are asked, how many people do you expect to participate in the process? That's one question. Are you going to engage in civil disobedience? Are people going to be arrested? These are, you know why they ask you all this? So that the police will be fully equipped to be able to deal with that situation. That's just what it is. So most countries around the world are doing away with these colonial laws. This Public Order Act, if you look at it,
you talk of colonial, or we will come to that.
Yeah. If you look at
Elizabeth's issue. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at this act, this Public Order Act, chances are it was written in 1933, which most of these British laws were written in the Gambia. They are backward laws that they are outdated. And if you, the funny thing about it, Mr. Conte, those in Barrow's government, especially those that were part of the opposition, including Barrow, had a serious problem with the Public Order Act. because it was what was relied on to kill Solo Sendeng, to arrest and illegally jailed Useru Dabo and others. But once they came to power, they saw that it served their need and did not want to be bothered by it anymore. So now it was necessary to have. But we have to live in a country that is democratic. You see, when you govern, when you live in a country, Mr. Conte, your concern should not be immediate. Your concern should be all-encompassing. You'll say we are drafting laws that are not only beneficial today, but will be beneficial in the future. Laws that can stand the test of time.
Can I come in? Can I come in here, please? You are talking about that denial that it shouldn't even be there. But now what I'm saying, these people have been already denied, and now they've declared that they will still go out, and it is the police that denied them of the permit already. So that is the situation currently.
No, this is why I said
currently.
Yeah, this is why I said that if I were them, if I were to advise them, I would advise them to go to court first and challenge the legality of that denial in the first place. But I do not think that there was any justification for the denial, and this is the problem that we have in that country. So you see, these people have legitimate concerns. You know, I know, everybody knows that corruption is rampant in that country. You know, I know, everybody knows that people are suffering in that country. The living conditions are harsh and very difficult for people. But the government does not want people to come together, gather to express their views about those concerns. So they would rather oppress those rights rather than respect them for fear of what is going to befall Barrow. Not what is going to befall the country, but what is going to befall Barrow. So any democratic leader would have said, you know what, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come to a compromise. You can have your protest. Where do you want to start? From here to here? No. You know, that would be difficult because you will have this and this and this problem. We can have it here. You can have your protest. You can give your speeches. After that, you disperse. You could have done that. But don't just start using these colonial laws and this ridiculous reasoning to abrogate people's rights. That's my problem.
So this has been a concern. Sometimes they will tell you that Gambians don't know how to do things. If you give them permit to hold a demonstration, some of them will use a very harsh words, insulting and other things. What do you say to that?
That's nonsense. I remember when Dafadoy, you remember Dafadoy, when they wanted to have their protest and occupy Westfield? Yeah. And everybody started talking about all this nonsense. Oh, they're going to do this. They're going to, even the government invited them to the State House and trying to talk them out of it. What ended up happening after that protest? They held a very peaceful protest. And after the protest, they made sure that that whole place was cleaned up and they went home. So what's the difference? You see, the dangerous thing is, Mr. Conte, is when you start suppressing people, you cannot do it, you cannot do it, you cannot do it. The day that they get up and do it without your permission, that is when it gets out of hand. This is where we have to nurture the culture of protest. Allow it so that people will come, express their views and go home. We have the police for a reason. You can use them to make sure that it will be democratic. But to go and say insults, so what? They insult, so
that shouldn't be a reason. Are you saying that shouldn't be a reason to deny them?
That should not be a reason. First of, what is an insult? There are different forms of insults. All right, let me give you an example. If you tell a Gambian you're rude, that is considered insult to many Gambians, is it? But we had a government spokesman said to a journalist, Omar Wali, that he was being rude to everybody. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
The so-called major conference. Was that insulting or what? So you see, you don't want to go into this gray area where you want to legislate insults. I remember when the former Attorney General was trying to come with that law where insults against, I'm like, please, you cannot do that. That's nonsense. But that's the thing. It's not that we encourage it, But there is a gray area.
But one
Where
could
do you draw
say,
the line? What is insult and what
Mr.
is
Jow,
not? Yes.
let me come in. One could say, as Africans and Gambians, you know very well that to tell somebody, or especially an elderly person, that you are rude is equals to insulting to the
Well,
Gambians.
isn't that
Or-
what they say? What was said to Omar Wali? Omar Wali is, I don't think he's a young man. That's you're just making my point. And this nonsense of, oh no, we don't know insults, that's not true. How come we don't know insult, but insults in our languages? We do not insult, but we have them in our languages. Come on now. But you see, that's besides the point. These are all things that they use in their attempt to violate rights. This nonsense of, oh, Gambians don't know how to protest, that's nonsense. Gambians have been protesting since the beginning of time. I remember when we protested in 1987 for school buses. We did that. Before that, there were protests all over the place. We all remember, I think you read it in the history when Senghor came to the Gambia, because of there were certain things that he said about the Gambia, and there was a massive protest. We also read the history of the bread and butter protests that used to happen, that happened in the Gambia. That was pre-independence. So protests had always been happening in our country. What we do not, the problem that we have is our security forces and our governments have always been scared of people who speak out or go out and express their rights. That's just what it is. Give them an opportunity to speak their mind, give them the opportunity to protest, and then, you know, people will live their lives. But don't try to control everything based on your own thinking. They don't know what they're doing. What makes you think you know what you're doing? Gambians don't know what they're doing, but you know what you're doing? Because that's what the police are telling us. We don't know what they do, what we are supposed to do, the citizens, but they know what they're doing. What makes them any different from us? They are Gambians too, isn't it? I believe it's nonsensical and it's a very lame excuse. Give the people the permit to protest, and those who want to counter protest, give them another venue to protest. Period. They would protest and go home.
All right. We're about to conclude the program, but I'll ask you this. Since the Queen passed away, there has been a lot of, arguments in the internet about who should mourn, who should not mourn as Africans and other things, and so many things regarding colonialism and other things. What is Coach Pa Samba Jow's opinion regarding that?
Well, I mourn George Sarr, who I knew and worked with in the struggle, who passed away about a week ago today, and who did so well for Gambia and Gambians in our fight to ensure democracy. I mourn Mr. Bernard Shaw, who was one of the premier journalists in this country, worked at CNN, was one of its first anchors, and who passed away the same day as the Queen, I think. For the Queen, listen, like I said on my wall today, the Queen was not an ordinary person, was a very public person. She led a country that did so much harm to people around the world. Colonialism was not the best thing to happen to Africa. Whatever people say, or the Caribbean, it was exploitative, and it was meant to benefit one party, and that was Britain or the United Kingdom or whatever they call themselves. That's just what it is. So you cannot expect such a person to die, and those who were supposedly his subjects or her subjects would not have an opinion on the way that she lived her life. Yes, she is elegant, she may be very nice, she may be all these things, but that cannot excuse what Britain was all about and what they did around the world. Colonialism was horrible, just like slavery was horrible. So whoever benefited from it would have to answer to it. And the Queen and her family benefited from it more than anybody else. This was why she was on the throne from 1952, when Gambia was still colonized, Ghana was still colonized, all these African countries that were colonized by the British were still colonized. Yes, we had our independence when she was Queen for them to continue to colonize us. Because then the Pan-African Congresses had been held, people were determined to fight colonialism, and they did in countries like Zimbabwe, even how they helped, in strengthening apartheid and all these things. So those things would always come back. People will speak to it. Those who want to mourn, they can mourn. But they should also expect that those who do not see the Queen as this great person that they claim to be would also have their view. So to me, just do you and expect others to do them and allow others to do them. That's it.
All right. So basically, it should do what you want to do. That's what you said?
Yes, but don't expect that we'll be like, I'm never going to be praising the Queen, because to me, she was an agent of oppression and exploitation. Because the kingdom, the United Kingdom, isn't that what they are called? Did nothing around the world but wreak havoc. Now they will tell you, because of the way speaking English, you think we spoke English by choice? We were speaking our local language until they made it their business to come and not only invade us, but colonize us and start in the Berlin to demarcate our countries and brought us all these problems and turn our countries into what they are. And of course, because of our laziness, here we are. The British just wanted our River Gambia and felt that the best thing that we can do for them was to cultivate cotton and ground it. And unfortunately, subsequent governments that come in became so lazy that they could not even think out of the box to know that we can do much more than just being groundnut producers and cotton producers. But the Queen, you know what? Hey, may her soul rest in peace. But I am not one of those who are going to be glorifying her. There is nothing to glorify.
All right. So now let's balance this, Coach. You have Sarada Kairaba Jawara's government. You have President Yahya Jammeh's government. And then you have President Adama Barrow's government. Which one of these governments Coach would put first, second, then third?
I don't want to do that, but you're going to put me in a spot. Definitely, if I were to choose between these three people, I would choose Jawara over any one of them. And the reason for that is I believe Jawara was decent.
So Jawara would be the first?
Yes, I don't think he was as great as he was made to be, but I think he was a very decent human being. I've had a chance to deal with him after he left office. And I believe that in spite of what they did after the 1981 coup, where a lot of Gambians were tortured at the Mile 2 prisons, for the most part, he respected fundamental human and constitutional rights. Of course, I will have to put Adama Barrow second, because I don't think he is anywhere close to as evil as Yahya Jammeh had ever been. And I also believe that maybe what would help him is the fact that Gambians may not sit and allow him to turn into a dictator like Jammeh was. But I also believe that if Adama Barrow is left unchecked, we may be dealing with another struggle, a very brutal one for that matter. But I'll definitely have to put Adama Barrow ahead of Yahya Jammeh, because to me, Yahya Jammeh,
so Jammeh is your last
is the epitome of evil. Yahya Jammeh was a liar first. He was very deceptive. Everything about Yahya Jammeh was fake. When Yahya Jammeh talked about Pan-Africanism, it was fake, because Yahya Jammeh used to like to play to the gallery. This is why, whilst he was talking about the West, that he had no problem coming to Washington, D.C. here to buy a $3.5 million mansion here at Potomac, to send his daughter to go to schools where they were paying almost about $40-something thousand dollars a year to go to school. I think it was 40-something or 80-something thousand. He had no problem that when the wife was pregnant, he, instead of using the Gambian hospitals or African hospitals, he would send the wife straight here to Washington, D.C. to give birth. Whenever the mom was sick, the mom was sent to Belgium or some of these other places. When he was sick, he was going to all these other countries, but the Gambia or Africa. So to me, that defines how much of a fake the guy is. When he was talking about Islam, we all know that Yame was faking. Yame could not even recite any of these surahs. He was just a liar with his beard, the
So,
beard, and all
so
that stuff.
okay, so coach,
Everything about him was fake and evil.
all right. So now we come to, let's say, coach, President Adama Barrow sit one day and said, I wanted to make Coach Samba Jow as one of my ministers or a vice president. Would coach accept that offer?
No, I believe there are more qualified Gambians to do that. No, I will not.
Why?
I'm never interested in working for anybody, especially in government. That's not my,
Now,
my
people like
motivation.
coach, if you guys didn't take the responsibility and you only want to sit there and talk, so would the change happen instant? If you don't go to the system.
You see, this is the problem that people have. If you don't take the responsibility, I have a responsibility that I'm taking. My responsibility,
Yes.
I've decided to take my responsibility as an advocate for the people. Gambia
But
is
don't
not.
you think?
No, listen. Gambia
Okay.
is not sort of competent people to run these affairs. That's what I'm saying. It's not a matter of Samba Jow. There are a conveyor belt of competent Gambians who can serve in various positions. You see, Mr. Conte, all Gambia needs now are just honest people who will do good by the country. It doesn't have to be me. Maybe you can do a much better job as a minister or vice president than I would ever be. So I'm telling you in honesty, I am not interested in being anybody's minister or being anybody's vice president or being anybody's president. My objective is to continue to be an advocate for the people. That's my calling, and that's what I intend to do until the day I die. So definitely, and I believe that Gambia is not these not the Gambia of the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, where we had limited educated people. This is a Gambia of the 2000s. Unlimited Gambians have gone abroad, they have studied or have gone to that university, have studied. There are people with vast experiences and ideas who I believe can be selected to do that job. It doesn't have to be Samba Jow. That's what I'm saying. If Barrow were to come to me, I'll point him to somebody that I believe has the honesty, the acumen to be able to do the job much better than I am able to do. We just have to be honest.
All right. This question has been posted on, I can say 75% of my guests. But thank you very much, Mr. Jow. What is your final message?
Well, thank you for doing a great job. And thank you to Gambia Talent for widening the democratic space. And I've seen what that young man, Pausman Diouf, is doing with the internship and all that thing. I know he is a go-getter. And I'm really appreciative of the work that you guys are doing. Keep on doing the great job. And of course, the tireless Fat Samba, who is always on the go. I'm really proud of you guys and keep on keeping on. What you're doing is really enhancing our democracy and strengthening it. This was the reason why we fought, and we are glad that today, at least, we've created a space in that country where everybody should be able to say or speak their minds without fear of being disappeared or killed. And we hope we'll keep it that way.
All right. It's a pleasure having you, Coach. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, viewers, we've now